Okay, in this video I'd like to talk a little bit about the different techniques that can be used. Now, my normal technique that I use with my left hand is called the traditional grip. I began playing match grip when I first started playing drums, and I played that for over a year. But then, because it seemed cool to play traditional, somebody advised me to play traditional, especially in terms of where we're going with marching bands, I decided to learn traditional. So what this actually did for me was I had a right hand, which is my strong hand, which was at a certain level, and now I had my weak hand, left hand, which had always been behind my right hand. Now it couldn't do anything with this new position because it's so seemingly difficult. So I had to dedicate a lot of time and practice to this technique in order to make my left hand equal to my right hand. What it actually did was make it equal, whereas before it had been noticeably weaker. So it was good for that, and again, for yourselves, you may find this is a good reason to learn this technique. It also gives you some different options. Sometimes it's easier to play on the kit, especially over on the floor tom. It's slightly less awkward, which I think is why Buddy Rich used it. One reason why Buddy Rich used it. Also, Buddy Rich had lots of different techniques which enabled him to do pretty much constant rhythms with his left hand while he was doing other things with his right. Now, I don't know all those techniques, I'm afraid, so I can't teach you those, but what I do know is my left hand is as strong as my right, and they're pretty much equal. So everything I can do with my right hand, I can do with my left hand in traditional grip. One thing I'd like to say is about the fulcrum. A lot of people seem to think that the fulcrum in traditional grip is in the same place, but they seem to miss the point that in match grip, everything is controlled from behind the fulcrum. So therefore, the fulcrum is where the stick balances well. Now with traditional grip, most of the control is from here, this part, and then we have some support in front. Now if we were to put the balance point at the same place, then instead of working the stick from behind the fulcrum, we're working the stick from in front, which gives us far less stick to play with, and it feels very weird to have it there. So I always move it back. I always like to think that the fulcrum on the right hand is the center of the hand in the left when we're playing traditional. And what we're doing is we're cradling the fulcrum rather than using the fulcrum. Now because of that, we have a new fulcrum position which is further back, but that does enable us to get quite a good swing on the stick, which is controlled between the side of the palm of the hand and the thumb. And then we also have a little bit of control with our fingers. It's almost the fingers below, these two fingers here, they almost provide like a spring. I don't know if you can see, my stick is bouncing off my ring finger. And my ring finger acts as a spring. Now that takes a while to develop because your fingers got to become very flexible, almost rubbery. And then the final part of the control is with the index finger. I like to think of this middle finger as wasted. As Travis Barker, one of my favourite drummers at the moment, he likes to demonstrate his middle finger is not doing anything in some of his poses. Anyway, getting off point. Yeah, so a lot of control is from this finger as well. So we've got a lot of control from the thumb and the palm, which gives us a lot of swing, and then we can have some more finer control with this index finger, which helps us to do more sort of intricate work. And we basically work the traditional grip in the same way as the right hand. So we've got the open strike, which we play in a similar way with the left hand. Now it's quite a closed position again. We're clamping between the index finger and the ring finger, and the little finger is offering support. The thumb is pushing down onto the index finger into the stick to provide a firm grip, and the middle finger is just hanging around doing very little. acting as a counterbalance, shall we say, to help balance the whole thing. Right. Yeah, I mean, later on we'll talk about, we haven't discussed this yet, but we'll talk about the double stroke on the right hand. We can do similar things with the left hand in traditional grip. And again, that's a combination of the back pivot between the thumb and the hand, the index finger pushing down on the stick, and the springiness of the ring finger. We can do all that with the back of the hand. And the ring finger. But we get more control if we introduce the index finger as well. Now the right hand, all of the sticking, the fast finger sticking is controlled with the 3 fingers. But with the left hand in traditional grip, it's a combination of the back of the hand, the springiness of the ring finger, and fine control with the index finger, which is wrapped round, and a bit more force used with the thumb to make the stick grip stronger. Yeah, so that's basically it for the traditional grip. Okay, now this next technique which I wanted to talk about is one that I haven't actually developed very well myself yet, but I'm working on it. And it's a technique that I would use for timpani. Now this particular version of this technique is from a guy called Saul Goodman, who was an American orchestral player, quite famous. Yeah, so now what this technique does is basically based on the French grip. Now the German match grip is with the back of the hands facing up, and the French grip is almost contradictory in that the thumbs are pointing up in the air. So instead of using the wrists, we're pretty much using fingers only. Obviously we will use wrists a little bit to give us a little bit more flick and a bit more volume, but most of the pretty much all of the work is done by the stick. Now the beauty of this technique is that we get one of the most open sounds that we can from the drum. Now as I demonstrated in open strike, we get a nice powerful open sound from the drum, but we can get even more open sound, less powerful but more open, from other techniques, and I'll talk more about that in the next video about match grip. But in this particular instance, I would say this is probably the most open sound we can get, because what we're doing is we're keeping the stick as loosely clenched as possible, with very little finger or hand contact, well, no hand contact whatsoever, it's only fingers, and we want that stick to come off the head, so that we're powering the stick into the head, but we're allowing the natural rebound of the head to push the stick off in a very, very flimsy looking way, so that there's no tension in the stick whatsoever. That produces a really nice open sound on the timpani. So yeah, basically we put the stick on the first joint, the end joint of the finger, index finger, and we clench it with the thumb. Again, we're going to be looking to hold at the normal focal point that we'd use at match grip. Fulcrum, sorry, not focal point, fulcrum. And then we're going to introduce the next 2 fingers as well to provide extra flick, if you like, to flick the stick down. But at the same time, we need to develop this relaxation in the thumb, so to allow the stick to rebound. As much as possible. So now this technique, I haven't really used this technique in drum kit other than on the ride cymbal. I find it quite useful to play the ride cymbal, especially quietly on the drum kit, using this technique sometimes, mainly because my ride cymbal's up high and over here, and to use normal match German grip is actually very awkward. So it's quite nice to be able to use the French grip over on the ride, especially when playing the bell. So we can do we would do exactly the same on the left hand. And so that technique is going to get a really nice, light but open musical sound from our drum. Okay, finally on talking about technique, I'd like to discuss the match grip, which we've introduced as the normal grip, and it's the easiest grip to use. So basically, we talked about the fulcrum point between the thumb and the finger, and then we talked about having about an inch, 20 to 30 millimeters poking out from the palm of the hand, and then wrapping our fingers around the stick to produce a nice closed hand, but not firm, not clenched, nice and relaxed. Exactly the same on both hands. Just makes things simple. Got the same level of control. And that's going to give us a very similar sound. When we talked about the traditional grip, it's quite difficult to maintain a similar sound when we're holding the stick in a completely different way. But holding the stick in the same way should hopefully, as long as the sticks have got the same pitch, it should make both sticks sound almost identical, so you don't sort of get kind of thing, which is very uneven. Yeah, and I was going to say about what I would call the modern American grip. Now, there's a couple of people you could watch that can demonstrate this very well. One guy is called Jason Furman, he's American, and also one of my favourite percussionists, a guy called Ted Atcatz. He's an American percussionist, excellent musician, and very inspirational. Check out his video on chicken wings, that's a good one. But yeah, also his video on constant motion. Now this American grip is much more relaxed than what I've demonstrated so far, and again I suppose it's an amalgamation or a cross between the German matched marching grip and the French timpani grip, in that it's quite loose. We are mainly concerned with the fulcrum, but we're keeping the stick kind of away from the palm of the hand all the time. And again, that produces a constant open sound. Not quite as open as the French grip, but most certainly more open than the open strike, which I demonstrated. I find this technique a little bit more difficult to control, but that's probably just because I haven't developed it. But yeah, I mean, it does offer up quite a lot of flexibility because your stick is constantly bouncing between your palm of your hand and your fingers. So you can probably, using the molar technique, you can probably get quite a lot of speed with this particular technique. Yeah, check out some videos and see what you think. See you next time.